cooling with warm water. As usual, I poured him a glass of warm water and placed it on the table. He said, "Look, our days are really without any surprises. Should we try to separate? Maybe it will be more fresh than being together." Once Akri said casually. But his attitude was extremely serious. He asked us to separate and try. But I didn't feel that he was discussing with me. It was as if breaking up had been something he had planned for a long time. If there was a little bit of entanglement, it was probably a reason to break up. Freshness. It sounds absurd and understandable. After all, we have been together for too long. Don't blame him. Don't blame me. Just blame the time for being too long. So long that we are not like lovers, but husband and wife. And we are not married yet. I don't think there is any point in me saving or entanglement. He thinks we are boring together. So there must be something boring. So I nodded and told him. Okay. Then I saw him visibly relieved. Maybe he thought I would cry and breaking up with me would be a long battle. When I went back to the room to pack my things, he stood at the door and looked at me. I listened to him indifferently and without emotion to keep me. It's not that urgent. You can leave tomorrow. But I wanted to leave. And I wasn't so tactless. We've really been together for too long. And I always felt that I could never pack up everything. So I changed my strategy and simply packed up the important things and necessities. I dragged all the rest to the door. And I told him, I will contact the property management to clean up tomorrow. He still stood not far away and looked at me. Maybe I acted too urgent to leave. He said, "Serene. It's really not that urgent. You can pick it up tomorrow." Oh, he did remind me. I took the key from my bag and put it in the shoe cabinet. Delete the fingerprint when you have time. 2. When I drove out of the community, I came back to my senses from this hasty breakup. It's rare for me to leave Akri's house so late. As usual, he was busy in the study most of the time, and I handed him warm water and went to organize his clothes for the next day. My friends all said that I took too good care of Akri. They laughed at me. Be careful that he won't appreciate it. But will find you annoying. I didn't expect that it would come true. And I really got annoyed. At this age, if you move out after breaking up, you won't be homeless. I bought my own house a long time ago. It was Akri who said that he wanted to live together, so that we could see each other every day after work. At that time, the most words he said were, "Serene. I missed you again today." Maybe you get really annoyed when you say it too much. You get really tired of seeing each other too much. So just as he was eager for me to move in with him at that time, he is also eager for me to leave now. I understand him very well. He kept swallowing when he stood at the door. He would do this when he was nervous. But he would also do this when he was excited. Maybe when he was excited and afraid that I would pack up, he would suddenly regret it and say, why did he say that he wanted to break up? It's not like he hasn't seen friends break up and tear each other's faces. And they have been entangled for many years and finally became enemies. I never thought that's Akri and I would have such a fight. After all, when I was still new to him, he really loved me. Let's not talk about regrets. It has nothing to do with ability or time. It's just normal for people to meet and part. After all, I sometimes dislike Akri. But I never thought about breaking up. After I cleaned up the house, it was already early in the morning. I canceled those unnecessary alarms. I was really tired. So I fell asleep after washing up. 3. I was woken up by Akri's call. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. If it wasn't for his call, I could continue to sleep for an hour. After I answered the phone, I heard him ask me, "Serene, where did you put your clothes? Why can't I find them? Do you want to go to the bathroom to look for them?" He left suddenly yesterday. And his changed clothes were still in the laundry basket in the bathroom. I haven't taken out the new ones to help him iron them. He probably just woke up and was confused. So he called me. Now he realized it and told me, "Sorry. I called the wrong number." I said okay, and hung up his phone. I have to admit that even without Zachary's call, I would have been close to the edge of my biological clock. I lay in bed tossing and turning but couldn't find sleep. So I just lay there looking at the ceiling. The room we lived in was specially decorated by Zachary. The crystal chandelier on the ceiling was luxurious and bright. Very beautiful. He said that it was the crystal ball he gave to the princess. Then we laughed and counted how many crystal balls there were on the lamp. But we always counted it wrong. When I was about to count again, he hugged me and smiled. Serene. Don't count. They are all yours. I will give you more in the future. For Zachary was a little childish and deliberately posted a statement to return to being single. There were a series of comments under his comments and in my chat box. What are you doing? How is it possible? He probably went to work after posting it. And saw more and more voices of doubt from mutual friends below. I had to come forward and reply below. Yes. We broke up yesterday. Look. How fast. It was yesterday that we broke up. But some friends still didn't give up and continued to ask me questions after getting the answer. Serene. Don't joke. Is the fate between you and Zachary something that ordinary people can encounter? I still insisted. It's true. Fate doesn't necessarily mean it's suitable. Right? I don't know how Zachary would feel after seeing such advice. I just feel sad. When we were amazed at the wonderful fate, we probably never thought that one day we would break up. And when it was used as a reason for reconciliation, it was no longer effective. He should have rejected the kindness of those friends, who cared about us more firmly than I did. How did that sentence come from? The heart that wanted to leave could not be stopped. 5. I met Zachary 3 times. The first time we met was in front of the glass window of a special restaurant in a city. He was standing outside with a backpack on his back and knocked on the window. When I looked up, he took out his mobile phone. It said, "Beautiful lady. Can we share the table?" Perhaps because he was afraid that I would refuse. He quickly typed new words and showed them to me. I am catching a train tonight and haven't had time to eat the local specialties. I hope the beauty can help me. At that time, I was enjoying my annual leave and traveling alone. Unexpectedly, I met Zachary, who was also traveling alone. I agreed to let him come in and sit with me because I saw his anxious and regretful look. After he came in, he kept thanking me, saying that he had too little time and had to visit too many places in one day. So he almost missed the local specialties. He said that in order to thank me, he would treat me to today's meal. I waved my hand and refused, saying that each of us should think about our own. Later, we didn't communicate much. He was probably really in a hurry and ate the meal a little hurriedly. What a pity. I made a guide before coming here. This meal is very famous locally. If I eat like him, I probably won't be able to taste the deliciousness. The second time we met, it was already in another different city. The bus I took and his bus were parked side by side at the intersection waiting for the traffic light. This city is famous for its architectural style. When I looked around, I happened to see Zachary, who was also looking over. We were both a little surprised. And he waved to me across the bus after being surprised. I understood his lip language. He said, "What a coincidence." He pointed to the upper right corner and motioned me to look. The famous red house flashed among the leaves blown by the wind. I was going to see this place, but I didn't expect to see a glimpse of its style here. I turned back to look at Zachary, and he said to me proudly, "It looks good. Right?" After the street lights came on, we were taken to different places by our respective buses. When we met for the third time, we changed cities again. Now that I think about it, Zachary and I are probably the city hopping people talk about. We are keen on checking in different cities in a short period of time. At that time, it suddenly rained heavily, and I ran to the eaves of a small house to hide from the rain. Then I saw Zachary coming over with an umbrella. He stood in front of me. What a coincidence. We meet again. He asked me, "Where do you want to go? I can give you my umbrella." The raindrops hit the umbrella and made a crackling sound. I said, "No. I'm not in a hurry. It's nice to wait here and watch the rain." He put away the umbrella and stood with me under the eaves to watch the rain. Maybe it was because of the magic of fate. We talked about more topics this time. For example, I asked him first, "Do you have to catch a train tonight?" He said, "No. My vacation is about to end. I will go around the city tomorrow and then leave." He asked about my schedule. I told him, "I'm short of time this time. I'll take the train tonight." He asked about the city I live in and said he hadn't been there yet. Maybe we felt that we were destined to meet. So we left each other contact information and added each other as friends. The rain stopped. And when I walked outside, he called me. He asked me, "Serene, if I go to your city for a trip, can you be my tour guide?" I smiled and waved to him, "You're welcome anytime." He came to see me suddenly. The first thing he did when he called me was to tell me that he had landed at the airport in my city. He said, "Serene, please come pick me up." When I drove to pick him up, I felt like I was in a dream. It was so unreal that I couldn't tell whether it was real or not. After we returned to our respective cities, we didn't lose contact. Maybe we guessed that each other loved traveling. So we would share photos taken on the last trip and the scenery of the city where we lived from time to time. I still remember that Zachary told me a few days ago that he seemed to like a girl. He asked me what to do. I said, "If you like her, go after her." He asked me, "What if we are not in the same city?" I said, "Then you should ask the girl if she likes long-distance relationships. If not, ask yourself if it is worth sacrificing your career for this relationship." I even advised him to think carefully. As a result, he suddenly flew to me. And when he saw me, he suddenly ran over and hugged me. He said, "Serene, I gave up everything to find you. You can't leave me." At that time, we really did enough childish things at a childish age. But it was enough to move a heart and make it willing to say, "Okay, let's be together." And this thing that made us proud for a long time later faded away with the passage of time. The excitement of that time was less and less. And finally became a disgusting mosquito blood. I don't know if Zachary regretted giving up everything to stay in this city for me. I don't regret it. I was easily moved by him. 6. The habits I developed in these years with Zachary are not easy to change. After I got home from get off work, I still researched new desserts or meal recipes. Zachary and I have many common hobbies, such as traveling, night running, and food. It's just that he loves to taste food, and I love to cook food. Without Zachary urging me to shout that I was hungry, I could calm down and follow the tutorial step by step. It was still early before the night run, so I took the time to think about the method of making snow meringue. I had always failed before, but I didn't expect to succeed this time. When I was about to post a circle of friends to celebrate, I saw Zachary's circle of friends. He went out to drink. I always advised him to drink less in advance to avoid stomachache when he came back. This time I should congratulate him. He finally doesn't have to listen to my nagging. When I was about to go out for a night run, I received a call from a mutual friend, asking me if I could go over to pick up Zachary if he was drunk. The street lights were not very bright in this area, so I planned to turn back. I happened to buy some iced watermelon juice on the way back. I said, "I'm very busy and don't have time." I know that many people still wanted to reconcile. They probably thought that both of us were acting on impulse, arguing over something, and we were deadlocked and didn't give each other a way out. So they came to give us a way out. But I didn't need it. And Zachary didn't need it even more. I clearly heard Zachary's cheers just now. I listened to the sound of the noise, suddenly returning to silence over there. I knew my friend was afraid that I would get even angrier if I heard Zachary celebrating happily. So I guessed that he should have left the box. There was no point in saying more. So I told him, "In the future, just ask him about Zachary. I can't help. I couldn't sleep. So I just took a book and curled up on the sofa to read. I love reading 300 Tang poems, and am always willing to split up the interesting characters in it to form better sounding words and mix them into names." Zachary laughed at me. "I guess the naming machine is not as fast as you." Zachary and I were together in a windy season. So I was extremely obsessed with wind at that time. So our living room was named Ting Feng Yin. The master bedroom was named Waiting for the Wind to Come. The side bedroom was named Wen Feng Maiyan. The stray cat on the roadside that we often fed was called Feng Yuan. Now the house I live in has no name. Maybe Zhang Lang has run out of ideas and can't think of anything. I don't know why Zachary called me again. I turned the page I was reading upside down on the coffee table and answered his call. He asked me, "Serene, how do you make that stomach-warming soup? Can you teach me?" I knew he drank too much and his stomach hurt again. He is busier than me and rarely cooks. In addition, he has no interest in cooking. So his cooking skills are not good. I'm not sure what he can make in his drunken state after I tell him the tutorial. Let's not talk about whether he can rink it or not. I'm afraid of setting the kitchen on fire. So I told him. There's stomach medicine in the second drawer on the left side of the TV cabinet. I wrote down the dosage. Go find it. He didn't hang up the phone. I heard him walking. Not very steadily. I couldn't help but wonder how much he drank. I advised him in the past and he would pay more attention in the future. When my friend called me to pick him up, I put the stomach-warming soup in the thermos. When he took off his clothes and shoes and sat on the sofa rubbing his temples, I ran to the kitchen to bring him soup. Now all these are gone. All I can do is tell him where I still put the stomach medicine. He must have found it. And said to me, "Thank you for bothering you so late." After hanging up the phone, I went back to look at that page. But I couldn't read a single word. I gave up reading and lay on the bed to fight insomnia. 7 after I came back from my business trip, I heard that Zachary was seeing a new girl. It wasn't a surprise. It's been a while since we broke up. And he clearly said that I'm no longer new to him. So any girl other than me is a new and curious existence to him. Friends have gradually accepted the fact that we broke up. And the voices of matchmaking have gradually decreased. So they tried their best to avoid the possibility of Zachary and I meeting. Luckily, I really haven't seen each other since we broke up. Unfortunately, we met for the first time today. It was already on their date. If the food we ordered hadn't been served, I would have left tactfully. I called the waiter to ask if he could help us get a private room. He apologized and told me that it was full. So I could only sit there and watch two people talking and making love not far away with one of my friends. I asked my friend if he could switch seats with me. In a way, Zachary and I were indirectly sitting face to face. I felt awkward. But my friend didn't help me. He just told me, "Eat it while it's hot. If he wants to leave, he has to leave. If he wants to change, he has to change. You didn't follow him. So there's no need to feel guilty." When I listened to my friends talking, I really couldn't help but notice Zachary's place. On the contrary, when I deliberately didn't look at it, my friends would laugh at me. "Serene, are you tired? What's wrong with being openly curious?" Then they would turn around and look with me openly. I saw Zachary's hand holding the chopsticks tremble. And he probably noticed our presence early. I just didn't expect it to develop into this situation. He was dating. And I and other friends were watching. In my opinion, there was no difference. It was not the same routine of eating, drinking, and chatting. It was just the beginning. So the two of them were still polite. For example, Zachary couldn't eat spicy food. And the woman put a piece of spicy chicken on his plate. And he ate it. The friend said, "How boring. Are you full? If you are full, leave." I went back and made a spicy chicken dish myself. When I first got together with Zachary, his stomach was not so fragile. And I couldn't live without spicy food. Even in the restaurant where we first met, we had spicy dishes in front of us. He said to me at that time, "It seems that we have the same taste." So after we got together, I often studied Sichuan cuisine and cooked it for him. At that time, the first thing he said when he came home from get off work was, "Serene, I'm hungry. Is the food almost ready?" Later, when he started to have stomach problems due to socializing, I slowly removed the spicy dishes from the table and replaced them with other ones. When I took a bite of the dish, the long-lost spicy taste filled my mouth. I haven't eaten it for a long time. I suddenly feel that it's a good thing to break up with Zachary. I heard that Zachary has changed a few contacts again. My friends laughed at me for being slow. And I haven't talked to anyone yet. I've been very busy recently. And I signed up for a baking class, intending to cultivate my hobby. Maybe there's really no one to control me, so I can be unrestrained and free. So Zachary is always there for drinking and eating. Naturally, I won't go to avoid suspicion. I haven't received his calls recently. And he has gradually figured out where everything is placed at home. Or he can ask someone else. The days go by. And I don't count how long we have been apart. I graduated from the baking class and rejected a man's advances. I plan to pause on the road of love and run on other tracks for a few years. Pick up those things that were forced to stop because of Zachary. Maybe he has been mentioned more often recently. That's why I saw Zachary in front of my house. It felt like a lifetime ago. The moment I saw him, I felt a little strange. He looked a little old and didn't look any better than when I left. I didn't think too much about it. I just thought he must have drunk too much. I asked him if he had anything to do here. He said, "The medicines at home are useless. I still have stomachicae after taking them." I reminded him, "Check to see if they are expired. If they are, just buy new ones." I stepped over him to open the door. When I was about to push it in, he stopped me. I didn't expect him to do this, so it looked more like he was hugging me with one hand. I took a few steps back and looked up at him. "Are you not leaving?" My refusal was too obvious. And he smiled bitterly. He said, "Serene, I want to drink the stomach-warming soup." I took out my phone, found the stomach-warming soup recipe I had sorted out, and sent it to Zachary. I told him, "Go back and try it according to the process. It shouldn't taste bad." He leaned over and approached me. "Serene, can you make it for me?" I hated his actions like this. In the past, he called me like this. And as long as I looked up, he would take the opportunity to kiss me. That should be when he loved me the most. So he would keep asking me, "Serene, will you cook for me forever?" Seeing that I didn't respond, he continued to call my name. "Serene." I didn't dare to look up. I didn't want to kiss Zachary. I didn't know why he suddenly came to me and showed that he needed me. But I didn't think about going back. I noticed that Zachary's pants and shoes were all bought by me at that time. I thought he would throw away everything related to me at that time. I felt that I couldn't stay in the same space with Zachary anymore. As soon as he appeared, I would involuntarily think of our past. And then he would tell me that he was tired of me. I said, "You go back and do it." I forgot how to do it. I haven't done it for a long time. So my hands are not good. The results we both make now should be similar. So there is no need to argue whether he should do it, or I should do it. He didn't stop me again. And I closed the door to block him out. 9. I still remember when I successfully made my first serving of chopped pepper fish head. Zachary praised me for my superb skills after taking the first bite. He always said that I would bring him endless surprises. He said what he wanted to eat a few days ago, and I would be able to figure it out in a few days. When the aroma of food filled the room, he hugged me from behind. He called me Serene. I buried my head in stir-frying, and didn't look at him. He hugged me tighter. "Serene, look up at me." I looked up at him and his kiss fell. He said, "Serene, I'm so lucky, right?" Later, whenever he approached me and called me, I would look up and a kiss would fall. Sometimes I would deliberately knock on his study door and call him, "Zachary." He looked up at me. I bent down to be at the same height as him. I smiled and continued to call him, "Zachary." When he looked at me, I kissed him. We loved playing this kissing game at that time. Our names became signals that we wanted to kiss. I am grateful to Zachary for abandoning everything and staying in this strange city for me. So I will try my best to be good to him. to repay this relationship that spans thousands of miles and requires sacrifices from one party to continue. When he came to see me, he told me, "Serene, the difficult things are just for me, and the things that come to you are all good things." In my dream, I always think of the things that happened with Zachary in the past. I realized that I was forcing myself to wake up when I was dreaming, and not to indulge in it anymore. Maybe it was because of the battle between the two consciousness that Zachary in the dream held my hand too tightly. I couldn't wake up. I was obsessed and in pain. 10. I was woken up by Zachary. The anxious, hoarse call overlapped with the voice in the dream. I couldn't tell whether it was a dream or reality. I asked him, "What's wrong?" He said, "Serene, I called you several times and you didn't answer. So I came to see." He kept probing my forehead. And then told me, "Serene, you have a fever." He still didn't know where the things at home were placed. Then he asked me, "Where are the antipyretic drugs? I'll get them for you." It was then that I realized what I had forgotten to do since I came back. I hadn't deleted his fingerprints from the door lock. I pushed him away. "No. Just sleep on it." He went to look for it in the living room. In fact, I develop habits in everything I do. However, Zachary arranges things at home, I do the same here. He quickly found the drugs on the TV cabinet. I heard his anxious steps walking around, occasionally passing by the bedroom door. He still did too little, and it was very difficult for him to find things. After a burst of ding-dong noises, I saw him holding a water cup to feed me the drugs. I took the drugs and ate them myself, and put the water cup on the bedside table. I looked at him and said, "Thank you. I'm going to sleep." I hoped he would leave tactfully. I felt dizzy and fell asleep very quickly. So when I woke up in the evening, I saw Zachary sleeping beside my bed and realized that he hadn't left. I was sweating and my fever was gone. I lay there, pulling my hand out of his grasp little by little. He subconsciously clenched my hand, then opened his eyes and looked at me. "Serene, are you feeling better?" He reached out and touched my forehead, and I saw him breathe a sigh of relief. He said, "You really scared me to death." Then he asked me, "What do you want to eat? I'll buy it for you." He kept swallowing there, and his fingers rubbed involuntarily. I remember the last time I saw him like this was when he broke up with me, for fear that I would not accept it and forced me to stay. What about this time? It shouldn't be because he was afraid that I would not accept his kindness. But why? After pursuing the novelty, he came back to find me? I rejected his kindness and urged him to leave. "It's dark and the road is long. You should leave early." Not long after he left, he knocked on my door again, and he told me outside the door, "Serene, I ordered you the pumpkin porridge you like to drink." When I heard footsteps leaving, I went to open the door. The food he bought was neatly placed on the right-hand side. I found his fingerprints and deleted them. 11's Zachary and I love to revisit old places. Perhaps those 3 encounters were the highlight of this relationship. So it is worth recalling again and again. After we got together, we originally planned to visit the first city, where we met on our first anniversary. As a result, because we were too excited, we went there early on the 100th day. We still chose the train at that time. It seems that we both like the feeling of slow travel when it comes to traveling. No matter how long the journey is, we can sit there and quietly watch the scenery for a day. I even planned early on to travel around the country after earning enough money. Zachary also said that he would accompany me to see all these scenery. He said, "Serene, you must remember to take me with you. And don't leave me behind." Zachary was more excited than me on the way there. He said he was feeling the road before I went to see him. He told me with a look of surprise, "Serene, it turns out that we are getting closer step by step, like this we were pushed towards each other step by the hand of fate." Until he knocked on my window and asked me, "Hey, beautiful girl, can we share the table?" As I nodded, with a click, it seemed that we could not break away from the destined fate. We went around the places that each other had been to at that time. It was also because of his presence that I always felt that my mood was very different from that time. He accompanied me to go around the places I missed again. At that time, my camera was aimed at the scenery. But this time it was aimed at him. He pointed at a tree and called me. Serene. Look, there is a squirrel. I missed the squirrel and took a picture of his face smiling at me. At that time, he was also full of my heart and eyes. 12. A friend had a birthday and asked for a cake made by me. When I pushed the door open with the cake, I saw Zachary there. It was not surprising. After all, we had too many friends in common. I found a seat near the door and sat far away from Zachary. This was the first time we met in front of friends since we broke up. Maybe it has been too long. And the discomfort and awkwardness when we just broke up have disappeared. So now I don't feel anything when I am in the same space with Zachary. At least that's what I think. But my friends don't think so. Their eyes swept between the two of us. And the atmosphere gradually became lively until they were sure that I was not uncomfortable. The cake was divided into very little pieces. And the last bit of cream was smeared on my face by the birthday boy with his fingers. He said, "Serene, it's delicious. Thank you." There was a call just now. And I took a wet wipe and walked out while wiping it. The call was very sudden. And it was a college senior who I hadn't contacted for a long time. He asked me directly, "Serene, I heard that you are single again?" I heard the surprise in his tone. A few days ago, I went to a college reunion. And Zachary didn't drive me there for the first time. So they kept asking questions. And I had to tell him that we had broken up for a long time. I just don't know who told this senior about it. When I was in college, Vincent and I had a lot of interactions because of clubs. After graduation, we didn't have much contact and gradually lost contact. He said, "Serene, when can we meet?" When I turned around, I saw Zachary standing there. I asked him, "What's the matter?" Vincent said, "Let's talk about it when we meet." I wasn't asking him, so I said I'll talk about it later and hung up the phone. I looked at Zachary again. He seemed to have overheard my phone call. I asked him, "What's the matter?" He started swallowing and taking a long breath again. He said, "The cake is delicious. Thank you, Serene. Can you teach me?" I stood there without answering. I didn't want to teach him. He started to find a topic again. They were playing games in the room. I always lost, so I ran away. I was good at playing games. At that time, Zachary asked me for help after losing several games in a row. When I won, I let him punish me. My friends were playing dirty and pushed their cards away. "We don't want to play anymore. People are bullying us because we are single and no one will help us." I raised my legs. "I'll go check it out." He stopped me and called my name. "Serene. Serene." Even after we broke up, I still care about the signals in our names. I was too scared to look up at him. I was afraid he would kiss me. Then I noticed that his index finger was about to break the skin of his thumb. I heard his voice above my head. "Serene, how about we get back together?" I guessed from his behavior the first 2 times that he might have such thoughts. I didn't expect him to say it out loud. After all, it's not nice to slap yourself in the face. I probably didn't wipe off the cream on my face. I could still smell the cream. I used a wet wipe to wipe it over a large area. I guess my carefully applied makeup was ruined. I always repeat a certain action subconsciously when I'm upset. Zachary held my hand and rubbed my hand to comfort me. "Serene, calm down first." I tried to calm myself down and not be upset by Zachary's sudden request for reconciliation. I asked him, "Why?" "It's not because I learned how to make cakes. And it's not enough for you to come back to me because of this novelty." He seemed to be touched in the sore spot and kept apologizing to me. When he broke up with me at that time, he was not like this. He was complacent that he found such an appropriate and reasonable reason for breaking up. 13. When I opened the door again, everyone stared at me curiously. It took me a while to react before I understood why they looked surprised. In the past, Most of the time, Zachary went out to find me after losing badly to vent his anger. And at this moment, Zachary was standing behind me. But he didn't brag as loudly as before. Serene is here. Your glory is over. They probably thought that Zachary and I had reconciled. When I sat there and drew cards, my scattered hair kept covering my eyes. My friend handed me a haired eye. And the hand behind me passed me, took it and skillfully tied my hair. My friend winked at me, hinting that something was going on between us. I ignored him and threw out a card. Then I heard my friend yelling. I got eaten again. When my friend was distributing juice, Zachary naturally helped me get a glass of watermelon juice and put it next to me. I played a few more cards. Let the birthday boy do an octopus dance for me, and escaped from the battlefield. There was nothing else to do at this time. So I decided to go to the dessert shop I often go to and sit down. When I arrived, I found that Zachary was already sitting there. He waved to me and motioned me to sit over. Serene. I've ordered everything for you. Only then did I understand what Zachary meant by boring. We have been together for so long that we know each other's living habits like the back of our hands. We know which action will follow this action, and which sentence will follow this sentence. Maybe it's just like what he said. There's nothing new to say. It turns out that being open-hearted and unreserved can also lead to this. He ordered all my favorite dishes and ordered me a cup of coffee. I have the habit of drinking coffee, but I always can't sleep at night because of coffee. In order not to disturb his sleep, I sat in the living room and read a book. He woke up in the middle of the night and found that I was gone. So he came out to accompany me. He said, Serene, do you think you are in pain and happiness? I smiled and said, yes. It's like I persuaded him to quit drinking many times. But he always couldn't quit. And he kept complaining about stomachache when he came back. He suddenly mentioned the first time I made tiramisu. Actually, it was not the first time I made it, but the first time I showed my skills in front of him. He suddenly said he wanted to eat tiramisu. So I bought the ingredients and went home to make it for him after get off work that day. When he came back, he smelled the smell in the house and asked me, Serene, how many desserts did you buy? The house is so fragrant. When I went out to see him wearing a hat and a bib, he stood there in shock. He said, Serene, how many sides of you do I have not seen yet? At that time, I was still complacent, and I showed Zachary a brand new me every day. Unexpectedly, it was also overdrawing my hidden side. After all, I am not omnipotent, right? 14. I listened to his recollection of the past quietly and did not speak. If he was looking for sweetness in memories, I was looking for arsenic in memories. The more I felt that I was omnipotent at that time, the more I felt how ridiculous I was at that time. When I tried my best to show my strengths, everything that could not be surpassed afterwards would be my weakness. I didn't even know whether to blame Zachary for his indecision, and never learned to appreciate the long-term flow of life. Or should I blame myself for being good to him without reservation? That memory has been sealed for too long, and I can no longer remember the details. So it sounds bland. He was obviously very excited. He spoke in a low voice at first, and then he held my hand directly after he finished speaking. Serene, I was crazy at that time. Can you forgive me? I focused on his words. That time. It turns out that he had been planning to break up with me for a while. Maybe it was when he was working overtime in the study, and I reminded him to lift his feet to sweep the dust under his feet. Maybe it was when I reminded him that the clothes for the next day had been arranged and hung on the hanger in the living room. Or when I discussed with him when to take a break and drive to the next city for a trip. Even when I saw me, a boring person, all the time. In short, his reasons for breaking up were extremely perfunctory, which just proved that he was so eager to break up with me that he didn't even bother to think about the reasons. I pulled my hand back and looked around. Obviously no one noticed us. But I still told him, Shariyish, don't talk. It will disturb others. 15. He offered to take me home. I pointed to the car parked outside. and he drove back with me. When we were waiting for the traffic light side by side, we looked at each other. But I could no longer say, what a coincidence, on the bus that year. Of course. We also returned to the city where we passed by each other like fate. We took a bus and slowly circled the city. I sat. He stood, holding my hand tightly. He asked me to look up, and I watched the red house gradually reveal its pointed corners. And as the bus turned, it gradually revealed its mysterious full appearance. That year he went to see it first, and I followed the direction of his finger to see the scenery he had seen. The next year he brought me along and took me to take several photos at the red house. Then he kissed me on the cheek, while I was concentrating on posing, and told me that I had a happy 158 days. At that time, he childishly wrote a perfect day on the calendar every day. We spent many perfect days. Later, it was probably boring to have too many such days. I seem to have not seen Zachary write a perfect day for a long time. I saw Vincent waiting downstairs of my house. Zachary's car followed. When I got off the car to greet him, I heard him say, "I'm late again." This sentence sounded familiar to me. After searching through my dense memories with Zachary for a long time, I finally found the first time I heard him say this. At that time, I had just been with Zachary for a short time. After returning from a night run, we walked home hand in hand. I saw Vincent at the gate of the community. He also asked me, "Serene, I'm late." Then he hurriedly chatted for a few words and left, leaving me confused. Now it's the same again. It should be because I'm older, more experienced, and more perceptive. Suddenly, I thought of Vincent's words in an incredible way. Zachary got out of the car and walked over hurriedly. He stopped very close to me, touched my hand with his fingers and quickly retracted them. He tried to maintain his calm tone and asked me, "Serene, what's wrong?" I looked at the panic on his face and felt funny and refreshed. I subconsciously drove him away. "It's okay. You go back." He wanted me to keep him, and came over to hold my hand with courage. I avoided him. Vincent asked me, "Serene, I just got off the plane and rushed here. Can you accompany me to dinner?" Then he asked Zachary. "Together?" Zachary said he was very busy and had to leave for something. 16 Vincent probably wasn't hungry, so he didn't eat much. He did talk a lot. I really had no impression of what he said about liking me. He laughed at me. A dull head. I suddenly remembered that when Zachary didn't come to see me, he chatted with me and hinted at me several times. But I didn't react that the person he liked was me. He said that girls didn't seem to receive his signals of affection. I also blamed him for being shy and not knowing how to say it out loud. He even mentioned not living in the same city with girls. I didn't think about myself. I said it was bad. If the girl didn't want to come to you, and you didn't want you to go, then there was no possibility for the two of you. He asked me, "Serene, do you think it's feasible for me to confess directly?" I also estimated the success rate with an 80 probability. I said if it were me, I would be more or less touched. So he came running over a few days later. While I was stunned, Zachary touched my head and asked me, "Serene, don't be shocked. You will be touched if you say it yourself." It was then that I realized that the girl he had liked for a long time was me. According to my slow brain, I guess it is suitable to play straight. Vincent said the same thing. He sighed, "Serene, I won't hide it anymore. Can you give me a chance because I have the courage to find you twice?" He told me very seriously, "Serene, I have prepared everything. Just give me a chance." 17 I received a picture and a line of text from Zachary. He took a picture of Feng Yuan and gave it to me. Then he told me, "Mao misses you. I miss you too." I thought he was funny and ignored him. Let him scratch his head and think about what Vincent and I are doing now. In fact, it is a very fair thing. I saw him approach new girls with my own eyes. And then he was depressed and couldn't sleep all night. Now it was his turn to watch me meet a new man and spend every minute of my suffering there. When I counted to 20 in my mind, I really got a call from Zachary. The lines were exactly the same as I imagined. The moment he heard my voice, he said, "Serene, I'm sorry. I called the wrong number." Before I could reply to him, Vincent brought me a glass of water. He called me, "Serene. The water temperature is just right. Try it." Zachary hung up the phone in seconds. There was really nothing new about it. I even thought of the words to reject him. But in the end, they didn't come in handy. After Vincent confessed his love, he didn't rush to ask for an answer. He said, "Serene, there's a long way to go." He easily found a way to pry open our relationship. He used to call me, "Serene." Tonight he kept calling me, "Serene." 18 I drank a few more sips of coffee after I came back because I was greedy. So I deserved it for sitting in my living room, reading and daydreaming at this hour in the morning. After leaving Zachary, I have never made any progress in reading. I wanted to give the newly bought succulent a high-end and literary name. And I was about to tear the entire 300 Tang poems apart. In the end, I only looked at it once, and never thought about it. After tossing and turning, I simply named it Little Succulent. I really can't think of any more. I remembered when I took a brush and wrote the words "Listen to the wind" for Zachary to see. He picked it up and smelled it, and told me, "So this is the smell of ink." The words were framed and hung in every place where they belonged. I didn't expect that it would be my highlight moment. I should have brought them back with me when I left. I got another call from Zachary. This call came out of nowhere. I never stay out so late. He knows that too. When I picked up the phone, he asked me, "Serene, can't you sleep? Do you want me to accompany you?" I heard the sound of a car passing by downstairs and on the phone at the same time. I asked him where he was while walking out the window. When I opened the curtains, I saw him standing downstairs looking up at me. He said, "I can't sleep. So I came out for a walk." He asked me, "Serene, do you have time tonight? I want to talk to you." I knew he would have trouble sleeping and eating tonight after meeting Vincent. As long as I opened my mouth to respond to Vincent, the closest position he would be to me in this life would be standing downstairs looking out my window. 19 I still didn't go downstairs to see Zachary, or I racked my brains to find no reason to see him. A second after he sent me a signal for reconciliation, I considered whether I should nod and reconcile with him. As long as I am willing to swallow these things and never mention them again, I can live with him peacefully for the next few years, even decades. Originally, I really planned to live with him like this for the rest of my life. But he suddenly brought up the word freshness. Now he has come back to me after experiencing a circle outside. I can't guess whether he comes back because he loves me, or because he finds that I am better after comparison. I just know that I have not changed much from before. The boring, commonplace thinking and way of doing things that he dislikes are still the same. He can still accurately guess what decision I will make because of something, what tone and words I will use when speaking. I racked my brains to think about it. As I get older, my memory and thinking ability are not as good as before. Let's not talk about continuing to improve and innovate. It seems that it will be a luxury to maintain the status quo in a few years. I will get old, stupid, and slow to react. I may even be unable to take care of myself or develop Alzheimer's disease. I guess the way I treated Zachary at that time couldn't be described as boring. It's not that I think too much. People will really degenerate one day. I always feel that he disliked me once. And there will be another time in the future. I just don't know whether he dislikes my reaction is not as fast as before, or my execution ability is not as vigorous as before. In short, it's the same as that time. As long as you really want to leave, any excuse can be used as a reason for breaking up. When I was young, I could still force myself to pretend to be cool. When I got old, the ending I could foresee was not very good. Rather than saying that I was avoiding Zachary, it's better to say that I was avoiding risks. 20 When the post office called me and told me that there was a letter for me, I almost forgot that there was such a letter. That was the story when we went to the third city. Maybe it really felt that it was fate to meet in 3 different cities at the same time. So after we finished shopping, we decided to thank this fate. The way of writing letters was thought up by both of us at the same time. Since we can't go back and thank ourselves a year ago, we will write to our future selves. The slow mail method was invented by Zachary. He said, "Serene. Let's try it. I bet I will love you more when you receive this letter than I do now." After I opened it, I saw that there were only 2 short sentences in his letter. Did I get it right? Serene. Go and give me a kiss. The writing style was unrestrained and the words were not dragged out. I remember that we sat at 2 different tables to write, probably to keep the mystery of writing for a few years later. So I leaned over a few times, but was scolded by Zachary. I handed him my letter. "Let's exchange it and read it after we finish writing today. Okay?" I was so curious that I couldn't wait. It was not until the letter was delivered to the post office that I completely stopped thinking about it. No wonder he was laughing while writing at that time. So he thought about these things. My letter page probably didn't look good. I wrote and drew, and finally wrote a sentence. "Zachary, if you love me more tomorrow, hug me." At that time, we naively believed that those wonderful fates could surpass eternity. We always think that if a pair of hands are tightly held, how can we let go? Later, I understood. Love is to hold high, and life is to bend down and put down. I always have to tie my shoelaces, wash rice, wash vegetables, and go to work. I always choose to let go of Zachary's hand for a moment and go to work. When I am busy with my life, Zachary is still enjoying love. After all, we are on different paths. 21 I guess Zachary also received my letter, because he asked me as soon as he called me, "Serene, where are you? I want to hug you." He must not have read the question seriously. I said that if he loves me more, come and hug me. I don't believe that his love for me can surpass every day before he got tired of me. At that time, every day he was thinking about how to make money and how to marry me. It's definitely not like now, thinking about how to find reasons to coax me to get back together every day. It's already going downhill, isn't it? Maybe it's really the end of the road. So he started crying. I rarely see him cry. He is always busy around me. Busy with work. Busy with loving me. Busy with hating me. I have to admit that I am very stingy. I am still fussing about his expression, gestures and tone on the day he casually proposed breaking up. I still remember the long sigh of relief he let out when I agreed to him. At that time, he was full of joy thinking that he had finally dumped me with a lame excuse. He never thought there would be such a reversal today. He was ready to never look back. I didn't even need to test to know that my fingerprints had been deleted from his door lock. Probably all my things in the house had been cleared away. It's just that the slap in the face came too quickly. Just like I missed the time when he was grateful for having me in the past. He also tried to find someone better than me and more exciting in other people. It's just that the 3 encounters were too amazing. Everything after that was bland. Not only can I no longer reproduce the stunning glimpse of the year, others can't either. I can't seem to persuade him not to cry. He did something wrong, and he was crying because he was stupid and confused. Just like I had no right to force him to stay. I have no right to coax him now. Doesn't he believe in fate? Then let's leave it all to fate. Fate pushed him to my side, making him love me and tired of me. Let's see if fate will give him a second chance to be with me. 22 This year's annual leave has become a journey of me alone. As usual, I wrote the word departure in my circle of friends. This time I planned to see the scenery in only one city. It was dark, and I found a small restaurant to make up for my hunger for half a day. Just after eating a bite, I received a call from Vincent. He said, "Serene, I'm chasing my wife thousands of miles again. Send me a location, and I'll take a taxi from the airport to find you." I smiled and said, "I don't believe it." Then I planned to get up and pick him up at the airport. I heard someone knocking on my glass window. Zachary was standing there. Exactly the same as before. He said, "Serene, I'm here to accompany you. Now. I believe in fate. Not a step too early. Not a step too late. Everyone makes way for you just right. This kind of fate only happens once to everyone. Last time. Zachary had already used it up." End of the main text. Bonus. After dating Vincent for a year, we had already completed all the procedures and set a wedding date. It was a completely different feeling from Zachary. Zachary always felt that there was a long way to go, and slowly enjoyed the aftertaste of the throbbing when we first met. Vincent, on the other hand, preferred the feeling of the dust settling. Always tried to hold me tighter. Tighter. Zachary and I did the same thing. I also followed Vincent to the city where he lived. First, I planned to relax, but ended up falling in love with the city. Second, it was a more realistic reason. Vincent was doing better than me. If someone is destined to make sacrifices to be together, I am more suitable. I still remember when I told Vincent what I thought. He told me, "Serene, just wait for me to come to you. You don't need to do anything wrong." I suddenly realized that when I praised my single-minded love for Zachary, Zachary was also praising his sacrifice of thousands of miles to come to him. The difference is that I saw his sacrifice, and thanked him for his sacrifice. But he only saw his own sacrifice and thought that my kindness to him was a natural return. So, our separation was destined. I learned about Zachary's recent situation when Vincent and I went back to entertain friends after the wedding. This year, he always went back and forth to the cities where we met. As for what he was looking for, I don't know. Maybe he lamented his impulse when he was young and traveled to a strange city for someone. Maybe he really calmed down and thought about how much impact he had on me that day. He will never understand that even if we have been together for a long time, he will exist in my future. So, when he easily talked about the loss of freshness, how disappointed I was. At the instigation of his friends, Vincent repeated the vows he made on the wedding day. He was very emotional. Even though the wedding had been over for a long time, he would still cry when he said those nice things to me. We had to take a flight back in the early morning, so it ended quickly. On the way home, I received a call from Zachary. It was a bit unexpected. We haven't contacted each other since that day. I felt it was noisy, so I turned off the mute and planned to let it hang up by itself. Vincent kissed my face. "Take it. What if something happens?" I have never heard his voice so hoarse. As if he just woke up from a hangover. He called my name, "Serene." I said softly. "Where are you? Is it convenient to come back? I bought you a wedding gift." He explained that he didn't mean to miss our banquet, but just slept for a long time. Of course I knew. From the moment I walked in, the friend who had accompanied me to witness Zachary's love told me that she asked someone to get Zachary drunk yesterday to ensure that he couldn't come to make trouble today. She told me confidently that Zachary was still scheming and threatened to wait until I was single again. She even said "pie" a few times and told me that it was just a fantasy. The car had already left the highway and was about to arrive at the airport. I rarely came back after settling in that city. My friend was just talking about the next time we met. I guess I'm pregnant. I had imagined countless times that Zachary and I would get married and have children in this city. And our children would grow up with the children of our friends. I never thought that I would end up living with someone else in another city. I was silent for a long time. He continued to call me. "Serene?" I told him. "I can't go back. The plane is about to take off." I heard him crying, but I couldn't comfort him. I didn't even say goodbye to him, and hung up the phone. I had tried my best to run to the love that he sacrificed for me. I still remember him saying, "Serene, will you be good to me forever?" I even thought of pouring warm water for him for a lifetime. I just didn't expect that my wholehearted love couldn't cool down the warm water. The water cooled down. And finally my heart cooled down too.